I think I lost a ling. Well, I guess I gotta reload. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Giant Grant Games, and I'm here to ask, is it possible to beat Starcraft 2, Heart of the Swarm, on hard without losing a unit? If you haven't seen my Wings of Liberty Deathless run, it will be linked at the end of the video. Before we begin, here is a quick refresher on the rules of the run. 1. No units can die. 2. Save all allies possible. 3. Deaths and cinematics do not count. 4. Buildings are not units. And 5. Units with timed lives, such as broodlings and locusts, count as dying when they expire. One small note before we begin. Heart of the Swarm does not have a units lost counter on the score screen. It will be back for Legacy of the Void and Nova Covert Ops. But for Heart of the Swarm, I had to rely on my Twitch viewers to keep me honest. If you want to join them, or just want to hang out, come check out my stream. With that out of the way, let's get into it. The first mission of Heart of the Swarm is Lab Rat. At a glance, this mission is a joke. First, you're taught how to make drones, buildings, and zerglings. After you make zerglings, it's time to break free. Usually, this involves creating an unstoppable wave of zerglings, rescuing additional reinforcements as you go, and finally crushing the Eradicator boss at the end. The problem is, zerglings are really weak. Enemy bots are not particularly strong, but without constant pullback micro, zerglings will die to even simple enemy groups. Splitting larger groups of bots into small waves is required. After rescuing all of the zerglings, we hit the first roadblock of the run, the Eradicator. The Eradicator deals 10 damage per shot, and zerglings in melee range will always take 4 shots when trying to get out of range, killing it. I don't have Burrow to dodge shots either. If the zergling is the only unit I can make, and it's impossible to keep them alive, I guess the run is over. Unless... The way that the Starcraft AI works is that it scans all nearby enemies and puts them into 2 categories, threats and non-threats. Then it'll attack a threat, preferably the last one it attacked. Most units are always threats, but drones can shift between states. I gathered minerals with all of my workers and sent them to attack the Eradicator. Once the Eradicator dropped a drone to within 1 shot of death, I would hit the return cargo button, causing it to start returning minerals to the hatchery. The AI then goes, "My previous target is not a threat, finding new target." Now I just have to do this perfectly about 15 times in a row, and success! Mission 1 finished. Back in the saddle is a no-build mission. I control Kerrigan, and an AI Jim Raynor follows me around an Umojan facility. Due to rule number 2, I have to keep all Umojan forces alive. Kerrigan gains her first 2 abilities, Kinetic Blast and Crushing Grip. The first area is mostly a breeze. Stun enemies with Crushing Grip and eliminate. Kerrigan tanks. At the end of the first area is a challenge. 3 allied marines and 2 allied marauders help defend a room against Zerg and Terran attackers. The problem is that the marines are poorly positioned and just keep dying. To fix this, I use Kerrigan to push the marines and marauders, and use Jim to tank some of the hits. Area 2 is a series of timed pushes through enemy forces. It's not particularly hard. Once I reach the tram, I'm on defense. I use Kinetic Blast to snipe incoming dropships, so enemy threats do not cascade out of control. Finally, it's the Archangel fight. Unfortunately, the Umojan AI is not savable here. Dodge the Archangel shots, play safely, and the mission is done. Rendezvous is a 2-part mission. First, survive 15 minutes until I'm delivered a powerful army, and then defeat the Terran with that army. I also unlock the Queen, which isn't really a combat unit, but it marks the last time I will ever willingly build a Zergling. Queens have the Transfuse ability, which provides a small heal over time to a friendly target. This, combined with Spore and Spine Crawlers, gives me a strong initial defense. There are infested structures on each side of my base. They're intended as a small roadblock for the enemy. When they die, they spawn broodlings with a timed life to attack enemies. Broodlings are going to be a constant source of frustration during this run. Zerg has a ton of different ways to spawn broodlings. They're normally a very powerful tool the Zerg arsenal has both to attack and defend with. Due to their 5-second lifespan, not only am I not allowed to make any units that spawn broodlings, but most Zerg buildings spawn broodlings when they're killed, ending the run. This means that even minor attacks on my bases can be potentially catastrophic. I will have to defend very well. While I wait for reinforcements, there is a bonus objective. Zerg allies pinned down in caves that come under my control once I rescue them. No man left behind means we need to save them all. When moving around the map, I send Kerrigan solo. At this point, Kerrigan is very weak, and cleaning up enemies is a slow process. Once Noctool's Zerg arrive, it's normally an easy win, but frustratingly, most of her reinforcements are useless Zerglings. Once I reach critical queen mass, I march them across the bridge into the enemy base. Whenever a queen gets low, I burrow her to keep her safe. Kerrigan snipes enemy tanks, and eventually the base falls. After the mission, I get my first upgrade, Hardened Carapace for Zerglings. Wanting to unlock a more robust combat unit, I head to Kaldir. Harvest of Screams is a mission where the mechanics of the map dominate my decision making. The map occasionally flash freezes. All units who are not immune are frozen for 60 seconds, unable to move or attack. Initially, the Zerg are vulnerable to this, but after killing an Urson Matriarch and absorbing its essence, I become immune. I also unlock the Roach, a low damage, high durability unit who can burrow and rapidly regenerate HP. They can't hit air, but against any ground target, they're exactly what I'm looking for. The mission objective is to destroy 3 spires that are nested in well-defended Protoss bases. There are also bonus objectives to kill some Earthstones around the map. From now on, bonus objectives will level Kerrigan up. As Kerrigan increases in level, her base stats improve and she gains access to a variety of new abilities that will help through the run. The early Protoss forces lack detection, so I can be pretty aggressive with my army. Burrow any damaged roaches, and they'll regenerate quickly. I try to pick fights right as the flash freeze hits, to secure some easy kills. The area around the first spire has a mineral field, so I grab a second base and continue to build up my forces. During the flash freezes, I know I'm safe, so I use the time to kill the bonus objectives. The rest of the mission is simple. Defend the Protoss, wait for the flash freeze, clear to the next objective, rinse, and repeat until finished. After the mission, I grab the Adaptive Plating upgrade for the Roach. Shoot the Messenger is a defense mission. There are 3 warp conduits on the Zerg side of the map, and the Protoss are trying to escort waves of shuttles to them. All we have to do is kill the shuttles and their escorts. Easy. I'm also given the Hydralisk, an all-rounder unit who's good against both ground and air, but it's pretty squishy. The first couple waves of shuttles have minor escorts and go down easy. 3 stasis chambers are littered around the map as bonus objectives. Most of the Protoss on the map are an easy cleanup. Watch out for Psystorm though. A good hit can end a run in seconds. The third shuttle wave introduces carriers into the mix. I have to make sure to have a large concave so I can collapse onto the enemy quickly. Starting with the 4th shuttle wave, multiple shuttles approach at the same time. Usually, I would split my forces to eliminate, but the risk of losing a Hydra with a half-size army is too high. Instead, I have to kill one group quickly and then book it to the other before it escapes. The final wave is the most dangerous. Multiple Colossus and a mothership can melt unsuspecting Hydras quickly. Kerrigan's stun is very important here. After the mission, Kerrigan can get her first new ability, Improved Overlords. I also grab Ancillary Carapace for the Hydralisk. I unlock the first evolution mission. Unlike the unit upgrades I've selected so far, evolution missions permanently change a unit into one of 2 options, and they're absurdly powerful. The later stages of Heart of the Swarm are balanced around the Zerg having access to these immensely powerful abilities. Which means you know what I'm about to say. This is the first evolution mission. It isn't possible to complete without losing a unit. I don't even think an AI could do it. Evolution missions have to be completed in a certain order, but you can technically skip them all, even if I am probably the first person to ever willingly do so. From now on, I'm going to be taking on the best of the Dominion and Amon with a severely weakened army. Enemy Within is a fan favorite mission in Heart of the Swarm. Kerrigan sneaks a larva onto a Protoss shuttle. The larva morphs into a queen, Niadra, who then consumes bioessence of the specimens on board to evolve, grow more powerful, and give birth to an unrelenting swarm that overtakes the ship from the inside. It's awesome. That's how I used to feel anyway, before I did this run. The beginning is easy. Once Niadra hatches into a queen, things get frustrating. Niadra initially has a supply cap of 8, and can only create Zergling. Niadra herself is nowhere near strong enough to deal with the enemy Protoss, but in later stages of the mission, I can't afford to have useless Zerglings. I end up making 5 pairs of Lings. Using Niadra to tank the hits, the Lings wrap around and kill. I also employed burrow ambushes to get close to enemies without taking fire. Normally, Zerglings have to fight a photon cannon alone, which might actually be impossible. But if you can get the right angle, Niadra can attack through the door? I won't complain. After destroying the warp drive comes the first monster of the run, an Archon. I don't think that Niadra and her Zerglings can kill the Archon without a unit loss. It deals too much damage and has too much HP. Instead, I have to get tricky. I burrow the majority of my army near the destination marker, with the exception of Niadra and a single Zergling. After the warp drive goes down, I move Niadra forward and burrow her. The single unburrowed Zergling now has to play the world's most dangerous game of chicken, moving towards the Archon to pull aggro on it, staying close enough that it won't reset the Archon's position, and kiting it down to the warp room without being hit. I then burrow the brave kiting Ling, unburrow Niadra, and book it to the control point. After reaching the control point, a short cutscene plays, and all of my burrowed Lings are teleported to Niadra's position, safe and secure. The next room gives Niadra enough essence to evolve. Her supply cap is increased to 15, and now she can make roaches. With 5 roaches in my army, things are easier for a bit. The next 2 rooms have a lot of Protoss and stasis chambers. They come out in small but strong waves. Quickly managing each wave is important. The next room is the same idea, but with much scarier enemies. I need the DPS from the Zerglings, but managing everything at this point is getting pretty difficult. After the room is clear, Niadra can evolve a final time, unlocking Hydralisks. With the added firepower of the Hydras and a mind-controlled Ursidon, I destroy the escape pods and finally finish this very difficult mission. After finishing Kaldir, I have the option to travel to Xeris. The mission chain on this planet is very important. At the end, Kerrigan receives a massive boost in power, something I need badly. In Waking the Ancient, there are 13 altars of Quilboar meat scattered around the map. You and Brack's pack are racing to control the altars. Whoever controls 7 of them first is the winner. This is my first encounter with Primal Zerg, which are basically normal Zerg with a reskin. I unlock the Mutalisk, an expensive flyer who doesn't deal very much damage, but flyers in Starcraft 2 can stack on top of each other, meaning a large flock of mutas can dish out damage very quickly. Flyers are also easier to retreat when injured. After feeding the Ancient One, Brack himself comes to play. Brack is really tough. He does massive damage in an area and can take Kerrigan down in a few hits. He also comes with a strong escort Primal Zerg. Brack is also immune to the stun from Crushing Grip, meaning I can't just crowd control him and eliminate. I'm gonna have to get creative. The solution I ended up on is to plant Kerrigan on his attack path and use Crushing Grip. While Brack is immune, his escort is not. Brack continues to advance while his army is stunned. Kinetic Blast Brack and run. The stunned enemies will start chasing soon. After Kerrigan's cooldowns are refreshed, dive in with the mutas. Kinetic Blast Brack a second time, stun the army a second time, kill Brack as fast as possible, and retreat. The mission takes a few seconds to end after Brack is dead, so keep running. After the mission, I grab Rapid Regeneration for the Mutalisk. Swarm hosts are a weird unit. Instead of fighting themselves, they spawn locusts to fight. Locusts are incredibly bulky and do great amounts of damage, but they only have a 15-second time life, making them unusable. The Crucible is built around using waves of locusts to defend attacks from various directions. Kerrigan is not present in the mission. Instead, she's taking a bath in the spawning pool. The combination of Kerrigan being gone and swarm hosts being literal garbage means defending is going to be rough. Luckily, the game gives me a sweet cooldown to help defend. Every 2 minutes, I can spawn a huge number of flying locusts to help with the fight, who die after 30 seconds. Initially, I tried walling in for the mission, making a barricade of spawning pools, spine crawlers, queens, and hydralisks to defend. But the Primal Zerg were way too strong. They could easily break 2 of the 3 walls that I made. After a few hours, I had to restart completely, and tried going for Mutalisks instead. Rapid Regeneration was incredible here. Instead of defending at my base, I split my flock of mutas into 3 parts. 2 groups patrolled where the large enemy attack waves spawn, killing the anti-air before it could get out of control, while the 3rd group intercepted smaller attacks from other directions. The mission goes well enough until the final few minutes, where an absurd number of units attack from all sides. With 1 minute remaining, I had to bring all of my Mutalisks back to help keep my base secure. At 25 seconds, I was finally able to use that spawn locust cooldown to support my army. The Crucible ended up taking a few hours of trial and error. But it was definitely worth it, because now I get Primal Kerrigan. In the mission Supreme, Kerrigan has finished merging with her primal essence, gaining new abilities and rapid energy regeneration. The goal of Supreme is simple: kill all of the primal Zerg pack leaders. Before each leader, there's a section of enemies to cleave through. Normally, Kerrigan and her escort would fight through them, but for safety's sake, I burrowed everybody except for Kerrigan and ran her through on her own. Once I reach a pack leader, all of my units are teleported to Kerrigan. Yagdra is the first pack leader, a giant worm who breathes lava and hatches eggs. Targeting down the eggs before they hatch makes the fight easy. In the second area of the mission, I thought I could burrow Kerrigan to reset the positions of my enemies. That didn't work out well. After fleeing from the scene, I reach Kraith. Kraith rotates through 3 abilities. First, he fires a volley of spines that's really easy to dodge. Second, he charges towards my army. This is very telegraphed and also easy to dodge. Once he's hit a wall with the charge, he's stunned for a few seconds, some primal Zerg fall into the arena, and he goes back to using the spines. Just like Yagdra, the fight is mostly about managing spawning enemies. Kraith himself is very difficult to die to. The final area is filled with banelings. Even on a normal playthrough, I would advise taking Kerrigan on her own for this part. When you don't have to babysit an army, it's a quick section. On to Sylvain. Sylvain is the most threatening of the pack leaders. Her first ability is an acid spray that does minor damage in an area. It can be ignored. But the real threat comes from the banelings, which Sylvain constantly is spawning throughout the fight. If banelings connect with the Hydras, it's a reset. Finally, Sylvain spawns Ravasaurs, a long-range artillery Zerg. They must be eliminated quickly. I couldn't fight a prolonged battle against Sylvain, so I opted to kill the initial banelings ASAP, kill the Ravasaur spawn, and then burn her down fast. A nice feature of having all my units alive is that my damage output is probably higher than the fight was designed for. After Sylvain dies, it's time for the final fight. Zervan is a 2-stage fight. During the first phase, tentacles constantly smash the ground. They must be avoided. He also spits out primal Zerg during the fight, including Ravasaurs and Ultralisks. They can kill Hydras in 2 shots. I have to be careful. After Zervan is reduced to 25% HP, he enters stage 2. Lightning Breath blasts Kerrigan's position and must be avoided. As long as you don't enter the phase while enemies are still alive, you can DPS through it pretty quick. With the planet Xeris completed, Kerrigan receives an immense power-up and new abilities. Now that Kerrigan is ripped, it's time to liberate the Zerg homeworld of Char. My first opponent? A renegade queen named Zagara, who's taking control of the broods on the planet. Domination introduces the Baneling, a fan-favorite unit. It deals high damage in an area around it, like a deadly green landmine. It also dies when it attacks, so it's completely unusable. Domination is a 2-part mission. Kerrigan and Zagara are racing to collect 100 eggs that are scattered around the map. You usually win this by outspeeding Zagara or engaging her, forcing a temporary retreat. Once I collect 100 eggs, I'm given a massive death army of banelings to assault Zagara's main base. The base is very well defended, and you would be a fool to engage it without getting the baneling army first, which is exactly what I have to do. While I build up back at home, I send Kerrigan around the map by herself. There are a few chores to take care of. 2 infested command centers to destroy for bonus levels, a good number of Vespene gas pickups around the map, and Zagara needs to be bullied a little bit. Once I have 20 or so Mutalisks, they join up with Kerrigan, and it's time to start attacking Zagara's base. The siege has 3 distinct phases. First, the Mutas poke in and draw the defenders out. Once Zagara spawns, pull back and engage away from the defenses. And then engage her production structures directly. Once the hatcheries go down, Zagara can no longer produce. As long as I respect when she respawns and don't get cocky, the rest of the base falls without too much resistance. After subjugating Zagara, it's time for General Warfield. In order to reach his fortress, I have to push through the Bone Trench. Warfield is having none of that though, and sends the sector's slowest battlecruisers to deal with the Zerg threat. The Char missions can be completed before turning into Primal Kerrigan. They're the last missions that are not balanced around her incredible firepower, and I'm more than willing to abuse that. Fire in the Sky is simple. When you spread creep to a Scourge nest, it awakens and then shoots down an incoming enemy battlecruiser. Each subsequent Scourge nest is farther inside of Terran territory, so constant progress must be made. I'm going to send Kerrigan alone for this mission, turtling up at home with a wall of spine crawlers and queens to defend. Most of Warfield's defensive outposts consist of some type of static defense, a bunker or siege tank, plus some infantry. This makes engaging easy. Poke at the defenses, pull the infantry out and kill them. Then move on to the isolated static defense. There are a few groups of allies to rescue in the rubble. Honestly, the hardest part of the mission is making sure I found them all. Once the 7th Scourge Nest has awakened, the mission is over. This one was a piece of cake. It's time to reclaim our homeworld from the Terran. Now is time for the Dominion to feel the might of the Swarm. I'm given a nearly limitless army of Zerglings and Baneling by Zagara to aid the initial assault, which I can't use. Old Soldiers is another two-parter. First, I'm given a Death Army. The goal is to clear as much of the Terran defense as possible. After 3 minutes, a cinematic nuclear strike happens. My forces are wiped out, and I must build my own forces to breach the Tactical Operations Center deep inside the Terran base. This is another Kerrigan solo mission, the last one for a while. Instead of clearing the areas for new bases during the initial assault, Kerrigan snipes enemy sources of detection, clearing a path towards the objective. After the countdown finishes, Kerrigan's position is reset to my new base. She has to run back and continue clearing. Attack waves on this map can be very frightening. Luckily, they mostly spawn near the objective, meaning Kerrigan can weaken them before they move to my poorly defended base. Inside of the final wall, Kerrigan has to slowly clear all of the production structures. I couldn't find time to engage the objective until Warfield stopped making stuff. After the area was secure, I engaged the objective. I completely forgot it was a giant gun that shot back. This means that Kerrigan had to repeatedly blow all of her cooldowns on the target and then pull back when low on hit points to regenerate with Mend. Once the gun dies, the mission is over. Char was the easiest part of this run by far. After reclaiming the Zerg homeworld, it's time to attack Skygear Station, a Dominion research facility. The Infested mission is pretty neat. I unlock the Infester, a spellcaster who can mind control enemy units. Additionally, there are Dominion garrisons around the map. Bringing an Infester to the garrison brings it under Zerg control, spawning a limitless number of AI-controlled infested Terran. Occasionally, the Terran gas the entire facility, killing all the infested Terran, stopping their spawning temporarily, and giving the Dominion an opportunity to counterattack. The Terran has a high number of tanks, battlecruisers, Thors, and other powerful weapons defending the facility. Ideally, Zerg uses Infestors to capture the garrison, then infested Terran advance forward relentlessly, giving cover for the Infestors to use mind control on Terran units. This all sounds great on paper, but this is a Deathless run, and due to rule number 2, I can't let the infested Terran die. After capturing each garrison, I kill it before it can spawn infested Terran. This leaves me with a problem. The Terran army outclasses me in every way here. I'm past the point where I can rely on Kerrigan to kill things on her own. If the ground is impassable, there's only really one option left: lots of Mutalisks. Kerrigan isn't entirely useless here. She at least has enough firepower to clear through the nearby expansion. I can grab the Vespene geysers to increase my production. This mission was very boring. I sat around for 25 minutes slowly building up a Mutalisk force until I got bored and attacked. The open airspace on this map is clustered with missile turrets, so Mutalisks have to push through the edges of the base, sniping one unit at a time. After the planetary goes down, the mission ends. Finally. Hand of Darkness is the first time Kerrigan is introduced to the Hybrid, who will appear as the main antagonist for the remainder of Starcraft 2. They are much more dangerous than other units, equal in power to capital ships. One by one, Hybrid release from their holding cells and start draining Kerrigan's life. If the countdown hits 0, game over. Normally time is used for Kerrigan and her forces to clear to the Hybrid and kill them, but with Mutalisks, most defenses can be circumvented. At this point, one of my stream viewers informed me that the Hybrid and Terran defenders aren't actually on the same team, and my mind started racing. Why should I risk my units when the Terran can do the dirty work for me? I thought the Terran would soften up the Hybrid for me, but they went above and beyond my expectations. Ecstatic with the results, I try it again. There are also 2 Brutalists on the map that can be rescued. No man left behind means I have to save these bad boys. This group didn't fare as well against the Hybrid, but the Brutalist was hungry anyway. I kite the 3rd Hybrid to my base and melt it with Mutalisks, and rescue the 2nd Brutalisk. The next Hybrid is stationed behind a Terran base, which means I get to watch this Hybrid melt through a Terran Legion. The Terran AI could not deal with the Hybrid's illusion spell though, and ended up losing the fight, forcing me to finish him off. Very soon, they have a chance to redeem themselves. The Terran are holding nothing back this time, and they managed to do it. Score 2 for the Dominion. The final Hybrid spawn in a pair, and we're not having any of this silly Dominion fighting stuff. I decided to split them up and fight them over this ledge. They can't Psystorm my army up here because they don't have vision, making the end of the mission much easier. After Hand of Darkness, Kerrigan meets our good friend Dr. Nerud. While the Doctor and Kerrigan go off on a playdate to do some Dragon Ball Z LARPing, Stukov brings us an exciting new toy to play with, the Ultralisk. We have control of Stukov as our hero for the mission, and he has 3 abilities: a Bolt of Acid, Spawn Infested Terran, and a Life Regeneration Aura. While the Infested Terran are useless, the other abilities are great. The objective of Phantoms of the Void is to secure 5 altars to empower Kerrigan's Kamehameha Wave. The Ultralisk is the bulkiest Zerg unit by far. Combine it with the Queen's Heal and Stukov's Regeneration Aura, and it is a tough army to take down. As Stukov channels at each altar, he's unable to move or attack, but can still use Corrosive Blast to weaken enemies. Hybrid can kill normal Zerg in a couple of hits, but Ultralisk barely noticed them. Each temple is easier than the last, as my army scales out of control. The 5th temple might have had a ton of enemies to fight, but I didn't even bother fighting near Stukov at the end. After the mission, I upgrade Ultralisk with Tissue Animation. Now for something completely different. Kerrigan contacts Matt Horner and Valerian about searching for Jim Raynor. They try to convince Matt's wife, Mira Han, to help, but she's still angry that we never hired her mercenaries in the Wings of Liberty run, so a fight breaks out. Time to take the Hyperion on a joyride. The Hyperion starts with 2 abilities: a short-range teleport on a low cooldown, and launch TAC Fighters, which launches waves of small ships to fight with you. TAC Fighters can die, so it won't be used. The beginning of the mission is pretty rough. Swarms of fighters attack the Hyperion. TAC Fighters are supposed to provide a buffer and extra damage. Instead, I have to manage the groups very carefully and kite. After reaching the first Ordnance Tower, I unlock Yamato Cannon. Long-range snipes are going to be key for early parts of the fight. There are repair bots occasionally. I try to wait until I'm low on HP before using them. There are floating minerals to be picked up on the map. Once the Hyperion gathers enough, Swan upgrades it, making everything better. To make up for the lack of fighters, I need as many of these upgrades as I can get. A friendly space station is also spawning fighters and occasionally battlecruisers. It's not possible to keep the AI-controlled fighters alive, but I'm going to finish the mission as fast as possible to save as many as possible. Even after the Hyperion gets upgraded, fighters are still deadly. Eventually, enemy battlecruisers start spawning, but a well-placed Yamato Cannon is enough for them. I also dodged a Yamato Cannon shot in midair, and I'm really proud of it. After clearing Tamira's station, waves of mines and fighters spawn. I was responsible and left repair drones around the map, making the fight possible. Eventually, the station goes down, and Mirahan forgives us. This mission is very bizarre, but it's really fun. When talking to most people about the mission Conviction, they respond with, which mission was that again? It's generally a forgettable stomp, where Kerrigan blasts through a Dominion prison ship to rescue Jim Raynor. Surprising everyone, including me, it's the hardest mission in this run. For a bit, I actually thought it was impossible. Kerrigan's gonna need a special build for this one. I replaced Mend with Wild Mutation. I also unlocked a new ability tier for Kerrigan, grabbing Ability Efficiency. The challenge on Conviction is not the power of the enemy attack waves, but the reinforcements I receive. Throughout the mission, Nidus Worms blast through the walls, tossing Zerg units right into the fray. From a visual perspective, it's freaking sweet. But Zerglings being thrown into melee range with Firebats ends a run instantly. That's where Wild Mutation comes in. Generally, it's a worse ability than Mend. But a well-timed Wild Mutation onto allies as they spawn can keep them safe for a few seconds. The early groups are pretty scary. After burrowing Zerglings, I have access only to Kerrigan and a couple Hydralisks against a large group of infantry. After grabbing a Queen and a couple of Roaches, my army has a bit of sustainability. Stunning with Crushing Grip is essential. There are enemy ghosts who use snipe very aggressively against Kerrigan's army. I wonder where they learned that from. Kerrigan carries the mission for the most part, but there is a point where she has to channel at a door while waves of enemies come. Learning the spawn order and crushing them quickly is key. Infestors mind control the Thor. I need the firepower. The next room has garrisons to infest, spawning infested Terran similarly to the Infested mission. Terran defenses are also similar. Kerrigan has to clear through everything on her own, but I make sure to mind control the Thor. Clearing it out without Infested is a painfully slow process. Apparently, allied reinforcement spawning is based on how many units you've lost. This Nidus Worm just busts onto the scene and doesn't drop anybody for me. The final room in the first section is not too difficult as long as you don't fight in range of the tanks. The second section is similar to the first, but it's timed. I have 5 minutes to clear through it. The first group has 2 Thors, Infestors do their thing, and now we have a Thortet. My massive army makes getting to the end easy. The end is a disaster though. The Terran have an entrenched position. It's not possible to slam the Zerg into it and not lose anything. I also have only 2 minutes to clear everything out. This wouldn't be a problem if it weren't for this damned Nidus worm. This guy busts through the wall, delivering reinforcements directly into the fray. The reinforcements include Zerglings, which get vaporized instantly by tanks and marines. The only way I found to do this is to have Kerrigan charge in, kinetic blast the tank to the left while aggroing everything possible. Once a reinforcement wave spawns, the tank to the north will start rotating its turret to fire. This is where Wild Mutation comes in. Hit the reinforcement wave with Wild Mutation, giving them a shield buffer. The timing on this is very tight, only a couple of frames. Needless to say, I failed this trick a lot. After saving the Lings, burrow all of the reinforcements and Kerrigan to avoid death. Bring in the Thors to eliminate the enemy. They're the only thing with enough durability and firepower to clear the area before the timer expires. Now, imagine trying to do this mission before unlocking the Infestor. I definitely didn't waste almost 3 hours doing that. Kerrigan now has enough levels to unlock her final ability, Apocalypse. Char is back under the Zerg's control. Jim Raynor is safe, and Stukov brought the Ultralisks. There's only one thing left to do: kill Emperor Mengsk. In order to land the majority of the Zerg swarm, the Terran anti-air guns must be disabled. Despite being the exact same thing we killed in Mission 3 with Queens and Kerrigan, this time they can only be taken down by biolaunchers, because reasons. Planetfall marks the beginning of the endgame of Heart of the Swarm. From now on, almost every vehicle I fight will be the mercenary version from Wings of Liberty, making them significantly more powerful than my unevolved swarm. 5 biolaunchers drop onto the planet's surface. After landing, they will deploy and start sieging the anti-air guns. I open up with a composition of Spinecrawlers and Queens. Each time a biolauncher lands, I leave Spinecrawlers with it to keep it safe. As the second biolauncher lands, I start transitioning into Ultralisks. They're the only way that a ground army can engage Mengsk's tanks. Kerrigan's new Apocalypse spell has a long cooldown, but it annihilates anything it hits. I took the expansion in the middle of the map, but it was attacked so often, I'm not convinced it was a good choice. Once I max out, I use the Ultralisk to destroy the Terran outposts around the map. The final biolauncher is attacked by some super heavy weaponry, but my healing is too much. After the last launcher is set up, the only thing left to do is clean up the Terran forces. Now that Kerrigan's forces have landed on the planet, I need to go back into orbit to destroy a Psi Destroyer? First, Dahaka must temporarily disable a Psi Destroyer by disabling its power link. Dahaka's grab ability stuns enemies and brings them to him. The first power link is an easy target. After the link is down, Kerrigan has 6 minutes to make what progress she can before the destroyer comes back up. The mission sticks to the theme of insane Terran defenses, but this time, it's cheesable. I run Kerrigan past the majority of the Terran defenses. Once at the destroyer, I kinetic blast the detectors, allowing Kerrigan to burrow unseen. To kill the destroyer, Kerrigan unburrows, kinetic blasts, uses men to heal, and then burrows until her cooldowns are reset. Rinse and repeat until victory. This is it, the final mission, Reckoning. The entirety of the Dominion's elite, Siegebreakers, Battle Cruisers, Warhounds, and even the Odin stand between us and Emperor Mengsk. Mengsk holds nothing back in this ultimate showdown, the conclusion of a decade-old storyline of betrayal, power, and vengeance. It's really a shame you can just sit over here and snipe the objective with Burrow and Kinetic Blast. Heart of the Swarm Deathless is overall a very difficult run. It's really a shame that unlike the other 2 Starcraft campaigns, it doesn't go out on a bang, but with a whimper. If you are looking for a bang, stay tuned for Legacy of the Void because it is coming up next, and it is sweet.